Welcome to our Climate Wisdom Studio, live from COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan. We bring together experts from science, spirituality, and politics, and we explore the dimensions of the unfolding climate emergency. I'm Golo Pilz, and I will be the moderator for tonight's session, and we talk about global unity, a very interesting topic. Welcome to the last week of the climate conference. The summit is struggling with health of the planet, with the well-being of the planet, and basically it's all due to geopolitical problems and tensions. Diplomatic tensions over global warming have also spilled over to the G20 summit in Brazil recently. There was some negotiation also on climate finance, and it seems they came up with some numbers. However, we have to see the text and the details before anything can be said about it. European nations are pushing for more contribution from developing nations, while developing nations are rejecting that, like Brazil, for example. The Brahma Kumaris has started this week with lots of programs and activities. I'm glad to have two experts with me who can share more light on this whole topic. Margareta Koltai, you are the policy advisor for the ACT Church of Sweden on climate justice. Your task is to engage in policy dialogue with Swedish and European decision makers. You have 35 years experience in the global development sector as a manager, and you lived also in Asia and Latin America for quite some years. You have also been with the Swedish government agency SIDA in Asia. Welcome, Margareta. We have also with us Sister Jayanti. You are the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris, a spiritual organization with 6,000 centers in India and 1,000 centers abroad. The Brahma Kumaris is accredited since 2009 with the United Nations Climate Conference, and Sister Jayanti is also the head of the BK delegation here at the COP. And you have been also to many climate conferences since then. This brings us to our first question. Margareta, please tell us a bit about yourself and what you do at the climate conference. You are probably also engaged in the interreligious dialogue and can share some points in that respect.
Thank you. I'm very thankful to be here. And sometimes I don't want to call myself an expert, because I think what I learned during my years living in Asia, the expertise actually came from the people on the ground. Very often we go abroad in development work and we think that we have all the solutions. But what I have learned is that people on the ground often knows the problems better than we, and they also need to be part of the solutions. So what am I doing? I mean, what I try to do is to bring those people and those voices to our policy makers. Because when you listen to them and their lived realities, then actually that has a bigger credibility than me somehow trying to be an advocacy person. So I hope that I can use the space we have, because we are also an accredited organization. And when I say we, I come from Church of Sweden, and actually our work is part of the development work or the diplomatic and relationship work with churches and people of faith around the world. I think what we try to do as an ecumenical movement at this meeting is to together influence our policymakers. And as I relate to policymakers in Sweden and EU, they are not so exposed to these voices. So I'm trying to do some matchmaking here on the COPs. And that sometimes gives me hope. And sometimes what we see now, it's tough.
Yeah. That's what I heard also, that it's not so easy to be at the conference with so many people, and the expectations are high and the results so far not that much. I liked very much when you said that you bring the voices of the people who are most affected to those policymakers, you know, and that you're a matchmaker. What a lovely comparison. Thanks very much. Sister Jayanti, you arrived 2 days ago and spent your first day or second day maybe inside the climate conference. You are also a veteran of the process and have attended many UN climate conferences and are deeply engaged also in the interreligious dialogue. What's your first impression about the conference and what has to be done?
Well, today has been a very rich day of learning because I was meeting interfaith groups, I was meeting the press, there was a Nordic group, and it was just such a wide spectrum of people that you come across and have conversations with. And so whatever it is that people say is the value or is not the value of these conferences, the ability of the UN to bring such people from such different diverse experiences together is quite incredible. But of course, the main sense that I get is that people are feeling a bit helpless and hopeless. How many conferences have we attended and how many have been held through the years? And still, it's incredible that people don't understand the reality of what's actually happening. There are people who are struggling for survival, especially in terms of the Pacific Islands. And you meet them and you hear their stories and your heart goes out to them. And it seems that the world is not yet ready to wake up. The Philippines has experienced its 6th typhoon in the space of a few weeks. Now, that is not the normal seasonal range of activity of climate. So we see all the signs, but it feels as if people are not ready to wake up. And governments definitely don't want to wake up for many, many political and financial reasons of their own. But there's still a very strong group of people who believe in faith and have hope for the future, that something good is going to come beyond all this.
So the climate conference has to wake up. What an interesting analogy. And it seems humanity is still in a deep slumber about climate change and the consequences, which we partly already experience. Thanks very much. Margareta, our topic today is unity. And unity is urgently needed to bring the negotiations also forward. Can the world religions unite for the cause of climate change? There's a lot of diversion also in the religious field. Can they unite for the cause of climate change? It's an existential threat after all. And overcome their differences. Please share your thoughts.
Yeah, I have been listening in to some of the negotiations. I've actually followed the negotiations around gender, which is very much about human rights and the values that we carry. And of course, listening to this polarization. And also some of them in the political space again. And what impresses me with the interfaith circles that we are part of, we are united. Sometimes we don't express our faith in the same way, but we know that we are one humanity. We know we are one humanity. We care for each other. We care for creation. And that's enough. So in that sense, I also feel that we can serve as an example for policymakers. It's not by proclaiming my own. It's actually by seeing what is connecting us. And that sense of connectivity, for me, that is true faith. You also have fake faith, which is very egocentric. But I think the faith we want to talk about is more of the eco-faith. We are connected as humans, but we are also connected to the life on our Mother Earth. And yeah, I hope, and I can see, not all policymakers, but I can see that they are also asking for our values. Because you can think that this is about legal framework, decisions, politics, economy. But one reason why things doesn't happen is because the values that informs your behavior is still lacking. So I think we could even fill that space even more, and we need to be brave.
So let's hope that the good atmosphere in the inter-religious dialogue and in the faith community sort of inspires our politicians and our decision makers. Many of them are connected, and I'm sure they will listen. And so maybe there's a chance to make the voice of faith more heard in the whole process. This brings me to Sister Jayanti. From a spiritual perspective, unity with the divine or with God is the foundation for progress and for the self and for the world. Does the world need more God conscious in this crisis? A bit provocative question.
84% of the world's population believe in some form of a higher power. And so I think that there is that awareness, but I don't think everybody recognizes that there can be a personal relationship with the divine or a connection with the source in which we can draw that spiritual power within ourselves. And people who have faith have a practice, whether it's meditation or prayer or silent contemplation, whatever label. And what they're doing is two things. A, connecting with a higher power, but also they're connecting with their own original universal values. Our values link us together in a very deep way, but our relationship with the divine is sometimes taken over by materialistic concerns. And so although people might say, yes, I have a faith, but they don't make time to actually cultivate that relationship. And so I feel that if more people were to do that, I think it would raise the level of consciousness of the planet to a higher level. So definitely a higher state of the consciousness and the awareness of the source of the divine would bring about major shift.
So let's hope more and more people at the COP develop this kind of God consciousness to bring unity in the process.
I have to say that there are 4 different spaces where Brahma Kumaris have been conducting meditations, and so I'm sure that that's supporting the atmosphere.
Lovely. Margareta, a little bit of a similar question to you. In times of climate emergency, religion has to bring people close to God and initiate inner healing and prepare the ground for transformation. Can you share a bit your thoughts about such a process?
Yeah. I always feel so impressed about this spiritual embodiment. And my spirituality is somehow grounded in being created by God, in God's image, like all of us are. But that is also a way of finding a source of hope and vision. In my faith tradition, it's the kingdom values. And I think what is lacking is very often in these talks, we just talk about the threats, which makes people afraid, and think about my own. But if we start also to talk about the society we want to have here, actually it's something positive. And in my faith tradition, the kingdom values, the vision of peace, where we as men, women live in peace as human beings, but we also live in peace with nature. And of course, that is also related to love myself and feeling, I am somebody in God's eyes. I think we can help with that positive vision, because what I see is not something negative to do this transformation. It's actually a better life for everybody. And there I think we could, again, be more brave in talking about the positive things that could come out of this. This is not that somebody's taking something away. You're actually, having something there which will be much more happy. And that's, that is faith for me. And then hope, just the last thing. For me, and when I speak with young people, it is very important, I think, as a faith actor, not just say, we hope, or you should hope that. But it's to get back your agency. You can be part and co-create. And that's why we always say, as almost a mantra within our church when we work with climate, that there is hope in action. We are co-creators.
All right. The good news is that in the Brahma Kumaris, we also believe in a new age which is coming. It's called the Satyuga, the age of truth. Yes. Isn't that interesting? So most of the religions have a similar vision of the future, yes. And that can create also hope in the middle of all the darkness we're watching right now. Thanks very much for sharing your insights. I feel now it's a good moment to ask Sister Jayanti, can you guide us in a meditation for a couple of minutes and create some space and unity for the world?
Thank you. I go on an inner journey, deeper and deeper within myself, and come to that sacred space where only I can enter. And there is peace. And in this awareness of peace, I can sense the presence of the divine, and from the divine, the source, the ocean of peace, reaches out. It touches not only me, it touches the entire human family. And the power of peace brings us together in the awareness of one family under the parenthood of the divine. The connection with the divine is eternal, and our relationship with each other is an eternal one. And as I acknowledge this, there's an eternal bond that holds us together. Truly, we are one family, unified through God's love. Om Shanti.
Thanks, Sister Jayanti. What a lovely meditation. Thanks also, Margareta, for joining us for tonight's panel discussion. Thanks also to our patrons and sponsors, and also to all the volunteers behind the camera which make this live transmission possible. Please join us tomorrow at the same time for another interesting session on climate wisdom. Please look at our webpage for more information. Last not least, thanks very much to our global audience, to all of you for joining us, and I hope you have been inspired. And one or the other information has also been inside our discussion which was new for you. Goodbye and see you tomorrow from Baku, Azerbaijan.